Hey everybody, Boris, let's speak at Forex. Welcome to our weekly technicals for the majors for euro dollar, dollar yen, and pound dollar, July 16th to July 20th, 2018. And a theme this week is going to be dollar power or peak dollar. Has the dollar sort of peaked out at the current levels, or do we have still more to go? The levels this week are actually very interesting because nothing really moved except dollar yen. Dollar yen had a clear and very, very clean breakout. And now we're in a completely different range of 111 to 113. As a matter of fact, the 113 was sort of the big resistance point at the end of this week, and we came off that level, but still stand very much above the prior week's level. Everything else is essentially still in those broad ranges. And if anything else, it's really held the support levels, both for the euro and for cable. And in some ways, as the week came to a close, I'll show you the charts, you can see that the dollar actually gave way for a possible counter-trend rally at the beginning of next week. Now, the calendar this week looks relatively staid. It's sort of like a middle value proposition. There is a couple of key economic data points on the calendar that are worth noting. First and foremost, on Monday, retail sales, of course, very, very critical. The market is actually looking, it's interesting, the market is looking for 40 basis points against 80 basis points. Retail ex autos and gas, which is the way we look at it. Kathy is bearish the report. She sees wage growth slowing, and Redbook reports show a drop in retail sales. That would be a perfect reason for the dollar to correct at this point, because if the assumption of the marketplace is that we're going to go to 3 instead of 4 rate hikes, that really puts a much greater pressure for the dollar to come down and for all the anti-dollars for euro and cable to rally off that expectation. So Monday is going to be a key event for us to take a look at that data set. Then the rest of the week is essentially really taken up with UK data as far as the counter goes. We have claimant count in Kathy's bullish stat on the UK front. And I'm actually very bullish UK pound as a trade into the front of the week. I'll show this to you on the charts in just a minute. CPI, Kathy is modestly bullish the CPI. That's really not going to have much of an impact unless it's incredibly out of line. And then we have retail sales for the end of the week. The other major economic event is the testimony of Chairman Powell in front of Congress, known as Humphrey Hawkins testimony. He does this every 6 months. It's the semi-annual testimony. First in front of the House, then the next day Senate starts Tuesday, Wednesday. And that will be an interesting tell because it will sort of give you an idea of whether he is unambiguously hawkish or whether he sort of reserves judgment and may be willing to just concede 3 instead of 4 rate hikes this year as far as tightening policy goes. It'll also be interesting to see sort of their views on why, just as the U.S. economy continues to grow at a relatively steady pace, wages are really not expanding nearly as much as you would think in this type of the economic cycle. So that's essentially it. It's really going to be front of the week UK, front of the week US, then UK, and then the Humphrey Hawkins testimony from Powell. And the primary focus will be the dollar data beginning of the week and then cable data middle of the week as we go forward. So let me let the ambulances pass us by while I take a look at the charts here. And I actually really want to start with my favorite look of the week. As the week starts, this is just setting up into a monster positive long. Why am I so bullish this technically? Because look at the bounce. This is a 500 period moving average. It's a very long moving average. But what I am really actually impressed with is the doji on the dailies. I mean, they really just bought the bottom, closed at the top. It's a very bullish formation. We certainly have scope here to go to 33 and possibly even to test the 34 resistance level here in the region here. I think the net takeaway here is that the market is very much coming to the conclusion that it's going to be soft Brexit that's going to dominate policy as we go forward. One way or the other, it's either going to be soft Brexit or no Brexit, but it's certainly not going to be hard Brexit. And that's, I think, is the realization that turns cable more positive. And this particular end of the week telling sign is very bullish. They bought the support level here at the 130.50. And of course, you know, anything can happen, but just technically and fundamentally, this looks to me like a spring coiled for action. I love this trade into the front of the week. Now, dollar yen, on the other hand, very, very strong move up. This was a big, big breakout on Wednesday, but we did stall right in front of the big figure, of the 1300 figure. And yen is notorious for doing that, for stalling in front of the big figures. And let me just go to the weekly chart here, just to give us a little bit of a longer point of view. And you can see that the highs that we stalled at were the lows of this particular candle here. This weekly candle here was the low here. Well, the high is 13, right over here, 1338. Pretty much this whole area right over here is a massive resist point that goes all the way back to last year. As a matter of fact, we're pretty much at 12-month highs right over here. So the possibility for dollar yen to kind of chop around between this 1200 and 1400 level is quite significant. Correction first takes us down to the 12 level, obviously, and I think that's reasonable for us to maybe test the 12 level. Ultimately, though, the real test, if they do take it down, will be at the 1150. If we take out the 1150 to the downside, that kind of negates this whole big breakout move we had this week, puts a much more negative construct on the trade. I still like this trade, but I do think it's going to come in a little bit. And if you want to pick it up, I'd rather pick it up at 12 and perhaps even 1175 before getting too excited about getting the long on dollar yen. And euro acted very well as well. In fact, in some ways, you could say euro's chart is even more bullish than cable, simply because we have a higher low over here. But it's essentially the same chart. It's the anti-dollar chart where support definitely got bought this week. And the question here, I mean, it's really, in some ways, the question going forward is, will there be tremendous reawakening of pro-dollar sentiment into next week? It's hard to imagine that, given the U.S. data is not superb, unless Powell just comes in unambiguously pro-dollar with very high conviction that he's going to raise rates. It's difficult to imagine that's going to be quite possible. The market is still is churning over the prospect of, first of all, the 10 years coming into the downside, and secondly, even with the Dow up today, still churning at the upper levels of the market, still not really able to break the fresh highs on equities, because there's still a tremendous amount of worry and concern over the impact of U.S. trade policy as we go forward. We also have, I forgot to mention this, so geopolitically, there's a couple of things that are really worth watching. Monday is going to be the meeting of Putin and Trump, so that'll be interesting in some ways, although I doubt it's going to have much of a market impact. But then at the end of the week, we have the G20 meeting, and that should be also very interesting, given the discord that we had in NATO this week. If we have continuous discord at the G20, that really is not going to be very favorable, I think, to the markets and to risk on trades as we go forward. So overall, I think just from a purely technical point of view, because at this point, the geopolitical situation just seems to be such a muddy place to try to draw conclusions, and we don't really have a lot of economic data to draw on. Technically, what we see here as the week comes to a close is that we have bounces off support, and they're tradable, both in the euro and the pound especially, because I think it gets the special boost from a soft Brexit theme. And those are the best ideas I have going into the week. Wish you guys the best luck, the best trading. Boris, over and out.